It's been no secret that Disney Star Wars and Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy have been an absolute dumpster fire for the franchise over the last 12 years since Disney acquired the property back in 2012 for $4 billion. And recently we've been discussing news here on Valiant Renegade, and many of our friends out there like Echo Base Network and That Park Place, who will be joining us today for this video, have been discussing that this new Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy Rey Skywalker movie is fraught with problems, even though we initially announced that this movie was absolutely in the works and were confirmed as being correct just a couple of months later when Daisy Ridley was marched out on stage at Star Wars Celebration in 23. But now, it seems that this movie is being put on the indefinite delay shelf. Does this mean that the movie will simply be pushed back, or does this mean the movie will be outright canceled? Let's talk about it right now. Renegade Online. Well, folks, welcome back. Another great day here at Valiant Renegade. It's good to see everybody out there once again. And if you are like one of the many folks watching this video, not yet subscribed to this channel, please take a moment and turn that little red subscribe button to gray. Hit that like button, hit that notification bell, share this sucker out on the social medias, and of course, please do leave a comment before you head out the door today, and make sure to join us every Sunday afternoon at 6 p.m. Eastern right here on Valiant Renegade for the live show. Merchandise store is now open. We'll leave a link in the video description below. We've got some stuff to talk about today, none the least of which is this one. We did a video this morning talking about Disney's legal woes with Andrew Esquire of The Legal Mindset and Ron Coleman of the Coleman Nation podcast. But now, surprise, surprise, as soon as that video went up, one of the things we've been talking about for a while, the new Rey Palpatine Skywalker movie is now, according to the Bespin Bulletin, being indefinitely delayed. You've heard us talking about all the problems that Disney has had from a media perspective, a PR perspective, with recent comments that have reminded folks of just who Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy is, the director that was hired for this film. And now it looks like, after some announcements with a Mandalorian movie or a Mandalorian trilogy, or Lord only knows what's going on at Disney right now, we have this. And joining me to discuss this article are my friends from Echo Base Network, the great Coach, and from That Park Place, Jonas J. Campbell. Gentlemen, welcome aboard. Let's get into this, because can we all just have a laugh right now?
Oh, yeah.
My God.
Nothing to see here. Move along.
No.
Yeah,
And
right.
before we talk, I'm going to throw it to you, gentlemen. We'll go through this article, but I want to stipulate this. I want to remind folks, it's been, if I'm not mistaken, about a year or so that Jonas and Coach and Nick, also from Echo Base Network, were invited on to a private discussion that was made into a video with WDW Pro and his channel when he announced that a source had reached out to us, a source that we know this person is, we know the veracity of this person's information, and told us that effectively higher-ups at Disney, read into that what you will, we've talked about Bob Iger initiative, pushing for a new Rey Palpatine or Rey Skywalker film. That was going to be a big thing. It was right after he came back in November of 22, and that a movie, a theatrical release for Star Wars with Rey Skywalker and R2-D2 and Grogu, Baby Yoda, was coming. And just a few months later, sure enough, at Star Wars Celebration in April of 2023, which Echo Base covered for days on end, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy introduced Daisy Ridley on the stage announcing a new Rey movie. So that rumor was 1,000% proven correct. But now we have some issues, which is not surprising. This is kind of par for the course for Disney. But the movie was announced. But let's talk about this, guys.
Daisy and let me just point out that
yeah.
when you said there was more there was more Bespin Bulletin drops about this movie, I had assumed that it was the stuff that had come out like yesterday or the day before. My goodness, this is moving fast.
Yeah, it is. Daisy Ridley's untitled Rey Skywalker Star Wars movie reportedly delayed indefinitely. And here's the kicker: Stephen Knight possibly exiting. Stephen Knight, of course, of Peaky Blinders fame, one of my absolute favorite television shows of all time, bar none. Stephen Knight is an exceptional writer, and I think we need to discuss the potential reasons that maybe Mr. Knight exited. But let me go through this. The untitled Rey Skywalker movie is being delayed indefinitely. Before we continue, they go into talking about supporting the website, Bespin Bulletin. God bless them. They do some great stuff. But according to a new report from World of Real, an outlet I followed for a long time and read almost daily, the Daisy Ridley-led flick has suffered an indefinite delay. Reel isn't known for breaking stories on blockbuster franchises such as Star Wars and Marvel, so the name might not be too familiar. But they get a lot of things right with smaller movies, which is why I follow them. For that reason, this report shouldn't be written off. But just because an outlet is reliable in one field doesn't mean they are in another. So they're hedging their bets on the news, but the news is effectively that this movie is being delayed. So before we get into further details, Coach, initial thoughts on this. I know you just recently put a video together. We'll link it in the description of this one for Echo Base Network. But tell me kind of what's your reaction to this when you saw this morning.
So first of all, this movie has been in doubt since the very beginning. And you're right. Everything that you said about the private conversation that we had with you and with Pro and y'all were the only people talking that this was going to happen, the announcement, the Rey's coming back, days before it literally did. And then it dropped. And everybody was like, oh my gosh, you were the only people doing it. And so they made that announcement, and it's like, it goes beyond logic and reason why they would bring Daisy Ridley back to do another Star Wars movie with her. It just doesn't make sense. So now this announcement comes out. It looked and smelled fishy from the get-go. Kathleen Kennedy, in Daisy Ridley's own words in her pitch meeting, hey, come eat breakfast with me. So she thought she was just going to eat breakfast. We covered this yesterday. Mm-hmm. And Daisy Ridley says that Kathy said, we're thinking about doing another Star Wars movie. That's not how you ask somebody. So they bring Daisy Ridley out on stage. I truly believe it was a test. Let's see how the reaction is. And then you fast forward several months down the road to Charmin Obaid-Chinoy's comments. Mm-hmm. In 2024, it's about time that a woman got to shape a Star Wars story. All Daisy Ridley has done is talk about the story is great. The story is great. The story's going to be different. We're going to explore the Star Wars galaxy. It's going to be very new, very different, very authentic. And then this happens today, and here's what I think. Mm-hmm. And so the boys over at that Park Place, are so good at looking at everything that happens from every conceivable angle. Here's what I think is most likely. Lucasfilm never takes the L. Not publicly. Ever.
Disney as a whole never takes the L.
That's right. That's exactly right.
That was our video this morning talking about their legal battles with Florida. It's the same thing. They keep making excuses.
Yeah. How many times have we ever seen Lucasfilm or Disney officially cancel something? Never. They don't ever officially cancel anything. It just goes away.
Except for LucasArts, which was one of the best things they've ever done.
It just goes away, right?
Well, that's Lucasfilm, yeah.
So here's what's happened. Kathleen Kennedy and the Story Group gave Stephen Knight an inordinate amount of demands after he turned in his script because they don't want to do the movie. And they knew by giving him a list of said demands, he's leaving.
Yeah.
They didn't publicly fire him. They didn't say you're done. They said, this is what we got to do to get this thing canceled. People quit talking about it. We're putting all our eggs in the Mandalorian basket. The Mandalorian Grogu. That's what we're doing. We can't do this Rey thing or we're going to lose Star Wars completely.
A trilogy, Coach. Now it's a trilogy, right? Yeah. First it was, is the new Jon Favreau movie announcement going to replace the Filoni? Oh, no. They'll work in tandem. And then it was a few days later, it was a trilogy. And now
it's an abridged season leading up to the movie. It's like always changing.
Good luck with that. I laughed when that came out, Coach, because I've talked about this before on the show, is that they're trying to pull off. Here's the roadmap for this. The roadmap for this is anime. Disney thinks they can pull off what Demon Slayer did and what Jujutsu Kaisen did and all this kind of stuff. They can't. When you look at the viewership of things like Demon Slayer, where they have done this hybrid release, hugely successful manga that was then translated into, as many successful mangas are, into an anime series. They broke the anime series up in chapter 2 in the second season and then said, hey, everybody, go to the theaters and watch Mugen Train. Mugen Train, $350 million in Japan alone, which if you scale up the population of Japan to what that would be in a U.S. equivalent audience, it's over $1 billion. That movie in Japan by population was bigger than The Force Awakens was in the U.S. And they're going to do it again. They just had their Swordsmith Village arc. 23 million people watched the season finale of Demon Slayer Swordsmith Village. That's almost double. That was just in Japan, by the way, which is almost double the number of people that watched the first episode of Ahsoka globally. Disney is trying to capture this, watch this part on streaming, and then go to the theater.
They just can't
I don't
do that, though.
see that working.
They just can't do that. These shows are not popular enough in order to do that. If you go down the street and you say, hey, Blue, if you mention Bluey, which is sometimes it's the biggest show on television streaming whatsoever, and people still don't know what Bluey is. You can say Star Wars and people will know what that is. If you say Ahsoka, they go, they have no idea. They have literally no idea. And the fact that, a bunch of guys at Lucasfilm are fans of anime, okay, I get it. It's not a bad idea what they did over there in Japan, but they had a much more entrenched and fervent fan base than this divided fan base that we have going on right here. I do have a little slight contribution from WDW Pro. He's saying that that this is not necessarily 100% canned yet.
Right.
But
I
look at this and I see no reason for this not to go the way of the Taika Waititi film or any other of those, 15 projects.
Yeah, there's so many of them.
The only thing that strikes me about this as being different and that I think it still has a few breaths of life in it is because, as we've talked about in the beginning, that video that was done a year ago with you guys. And folks, the only reason Pro is not able to be here for this video is that he is getting ready for a live stream moments away as we're recording this. So he's a bit tied up. But the fact of the matter is that as we originally reported, this particular film was being pushed from the very top upper echelon of Disney. This was a Bob Iger push. This wasn't one of Kennedy's artistic, self-indulgent pieces. This is something that Iger wanted to do because, as I've said for a while, this is one of the last remaining, if maybe not the last remaining, black eye on Bob Iger's quote-unquote legacy, is the failure of Star Wars. I don't care what the media says. They keep getting it wrong. The media, unfortunately, especially, and I'm sorry to say even the Wall Street media, does not know how to calculate profitability when it comes to franchises, especially film and television. They don't know how to put the numbers on paper and get them right. And God bless you guys. I love y'all, but this is why we're here, trying to teach reality, putting business through the financial lens of reality. But this is not the case. But to the article's point, as you guys are mentioning here, as mentioned, the problems plaguing the Daisy Ridley-led film stem from creative issues, according to the World of Real. Lucasfilm and the film's current writer, Stephen Knight of Peaky Blinders, are butting heads. I wonder why. I mean, look at the Lucasfilm. Look at the story group that they have there. Look at the people like Carrie Beck and all these folks. I mean, even the Kiri Harts that I know aren't there anymore. But over the years, look at the pollution.
Dave Filoni's new role.
Yeah, the intellectual pollution, the social justice pollution of Lucasfilm. Here you got a guy like Stephen Knight, who is one of the most accomplished and talented writers that exists on the planet today, that has written one of the most brilliant shows that has ever been in Peaky Blinders, my opinion. He's probably sitting there trying to write a serious movie for fans based on this, and he's probably got a lot of pressure on top of him to inject certain things into this that he's saying as a writer, this won't work. This doesn't work. Yeah. That doesn't make sense. The audience won't resonate. So I'm not surprised at all. But he's saying giving Knight so many notes that he would essentially have to start from scratch or a new draft. The outlet goes on to say Stephen Knight's frustration with the studio has continued to grow and is seemingly at a boiling point as the writer may not be staying on board the Rey film. World of Real adds that Knight has put Star Wars on the back burner as he's focusing his efforts on completing the script for his Peaky Blinders movie, which is due to begin filming this summer. After suffering a delay in development production due to the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes. So that doesn't surprise me. Stephen Knight, unlike not all, but many of the writers that have been brought on board before with Star Wars, Stephen Knight, he doesn't need this. He doesn't.
Right.
And obviously he's like, well, you brought me in to do a job. Now you don't want me to do the job, at least the way that you brought me in to do it. So I'm out. What do you guys make of this?
I think that particularly older white male writers have a problem in that they know what Star Wars, generally speaking, is supposed to be like. And I don't think that the higher ups at Lucasfilm truly understand what that's supposed to be like. They have this small intrinsic, oh, I knew George Lucas. We talked about samurais one time idea of what Star Wars is, as opposed to what there are people whose entire idea of creating a film come from Star Wars, and I don't think that's what Dave Filoni and Kathleen Kennedy have. And I if I had just an inkling here, I think that Stephen Knight probably comes from a more holistic approach to what Star Wars actually is.
And that doesn't jive with the current leadership at Lucasfilm, Coach.
So think about all of the things that have been canceled. You know, we're still, as a Star Wars fandom, still talking about the debacle at D23 and the investors' call when Kathleen Kennedy walked out and said, Rangers of the New Republic, we're doing this, we're doing that, and so many things that she has announced. Well, you brought Daisy Ridley to Celebration. You got the director out there talking about the movie. You've done all of these things. And you just watch, guys. Watch this movie just fade away, and they don't say a word about it. They treat the fans horribly. Just string the fans along. It's all about perception. They don't ever want to look like they have lost or failed in any regard. So yeah, you just watch it. The movie's not going to happen unless somebody else picks it up and they think that they can make enough profit on it. I don't think that's going to happen. Is there some truth to Stephen Knight? Maybe he wrote his script and they didn't like it, so they're give him the demands, get him out, and then get somebody else in. I really don't think so. I don't think they're going to move ahead with the movie at all.
Well, I think you might be right, and if I had thought about this early enough, I would have brought this. Let me see if I can find it real quick. But I made a comment, a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek remark the other day on Twitter, or X, as it were, and I said that it would not at all surprise me. This is probably 3-4 days ago now. I said it would not at all surprise me at this moment that that Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy herself would be handed a writer's title for this film. Because I didn't see this whole thing. Actually, it's right here. Let me pull it up. I'll show y'all. This was back on January 11th.
You very well could be right.
Yeah. January 11th, here we are. I said the following. Watch him eventually let Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy write it too.
Well, while you're pulling that up, you know, making The Mandalorian and Grogu the next movie is the right move. And
it's the best chance they have.
It's the first right move. They finally put the right bait on the line.
Right.
Finally.
Yeah.
Because they have gotten horrible decision after decision after decision. This one actually makes sense. You know what also makes sense, Valiant? Don't do Ahsoka Season 2. Nobody wants to watch that.
No. Let me ask you this, though, Coach, on that. You bring up a great point with using the right bait. And I agree from the standpoint of it's the best thing they have, especially from a commercial perspective, right? Grogu Mando stuff in terms of merch is about the only thing that has been a relatively consistent hot seller, albeit not so much in the past year, for merchandise, for Lego sets. We've made the comments before. You walk down the aisles, especially during the recent Christmas shopping season, Legos. You got 2-3 aisles in Target and Walmart of Legos, and a huge section of Star Wars Legos. 95+% of it is OG. It's George Lucas Star Wars.
Yeah,
and the
exactly.
only thing apart from that is Mando stuff. So my question is this. Given Mando Season 3, Coach, how bad has that bait spoiled?
So, I was actually about to say, my very next line to you was this. It just so happens that The Mandalorian Seasons 1 and 2 are the things that Disney has made that most resembles George Lucas' original trilogy Star Wars. That's it. Now, Season 3 kind of got away from that a little bit. Did the boil spate? Did the boil spate? Did the bait spoil? 100% it did. But that doesn't mean it's over forever. Is it unlikely that they get this thing fixed with The Mandalorian? Maybe. Very quite possibly. They definitely got the work to do, and they can't give us a good show, a good episode, or one good movie. They have to make this like a string. They got to get this over and over again. They got a lot of ground to cover with the fandom because Star Wars is sick. It needs a great deal of healing. It needs reconstructive surgery. And there's just too many of us that just doesn't believe under Kathleen Kennedy and maybe Disney that can happen.
Yeah, I would agree, and I apologize, folks. Jonas had to cut out, as we mentioned before. The reason Pro is in here is because the live show was kicking off. Jonas had to get over there and do his professional duties as show producer, so he sends his regards. But, to that end, Coach, one of the things, and we'll leave this as a final thought, I want to get your opinion. I agree with everything you said. Star Wars is very sick. It's, some would argue it's been long dead or it's currently on life support. We can have that philosophical debate, but here's my thing that I think is absolutely undeniable. Whatever Disney goes to bat with, whatever they put in the theater, the first thing that comes out now, after 7 years by the time it releases or whatever it's going to be, that has the name Star Wars on it, had better damn well be a smash.
Yes.
And if it isn't, we're done here, folks. Would you agree?
So I'll piggyback on that statement. I've been saying for weeks now, literally on our live show for weeks, if the Rey movie had been next, it would be the final Star Wars film we ever get.
Yeah, I agree.
There would never be another one.
What about Mandu Grogu, though? And I mean, thinking of it from a standpoint of, like we said, we all have our concerns with leading into this film with maybe 4 or 6 episodes of a season 4 and then doing the finale culmination on the big screen. Because effectively, what it sounds like they're going to do is, if that's true, they would proceed with filming season 4 as anticipated and film everything together and just simply clip the last 2 episodes and throw them on a big screen.
Yes.
That has me concerned because season 3 was so bad, the viewership fell off. How many people will tune into season 4 if it starts out really slow again, as they're famous for? What's going to lead, even if the movie comes out and it's great, if the box office performance is poop. I mean, if we get a $500 million Star Wars box office return globally, I mean, $500 million sounds like a lot of money, but not when you're spending perhaps $200+ million on a theatrical release. Which, again, I remind folks, when you're a studio, you pay higher prices when you're producing something for a theatrical release versus streaming. That's just the way it's always worked. Yeah. So that means the costs for doing this are going to go up quite a bit because you've got to pay back-end deals. Jon Favreau is not walking away without a piece of the box office, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But if they come out and they hit $500 million at the box office, after 7 years of a Star Wars wasteland, a desert in the theater, I don't think that's going to look very good at all.
Valiant, if you look at and we've had this conversation many times, if you look at every season of anything Star Wars in live action under Disney, they were all written like a movie. And they were all spread out.
Very stretched to fill out that.
Made into a season. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Robert Rodriguez told us everything that we needed to know when they asked him to do the Boba Fett episode in The Mandalorian. And he said he got the story and he said, this is it.
It was like
and
10
Favreau
pages.
said,
yeah.
Favreau said, fill it in.
Yeah.
He got 10 pages worth of
Yeah.
stuff, and it needed to be 50.
Yeah.
So it, and we know this. Jon Favreau had already written the entire season of Mando season 4. He did it before the strikes. So could they turn this into a movie with no season before it? Absolutely, they can.
Yeah, if they lead into it with a season, I think that's more risky than not. I think don't do any Disney Plus season 4.
I agree.
No season. Go straight to the film, because from a commercial perspective, from a financial success perspective, given what we have leading up to this point, I think that's the only tenable solution. That's going to give Disney the best chance, Star Wars the best chance to actually make this successful. Of course, the movie has got to be a killer movie. It's got to be very, very good.
So to that point,
but-
I think you'll agree with this. And I hate to say this, but this is the reality of it. The Mandalorian is the only movie that they could release and it be marginal and still make a decent chunk of profit. It's the only thing that they could do. It could be an average story, not knock it out of the park, not be chapter 16, Luke walking in, and people will still go watch it because it's the Mandalorian and it has that familiarity, and it's the one thing that resembles the most to George Star Wars.
Yeah, I would agree. Final question, Coach, for you. Do you think, and I know you've talked about this before, do you think that they will take this opportunity, the first thing they put back in the theaters, to give us a Frankenstein AI, a composite of Luke, Han, and Leia on the screen together that they failed to do before?
Man, that is a tough question, brother. I was one of the only people on YouTube saying that Luke Skywalker was coming back in Chapter 16 before it happened.
You were.
I called it. I nailed it. It stands to reason. If Disney wants to make money and if Lucasfilm wants to make money, then why have you not already had the original cast all together? We all know the details now. Carrie Fisher is no longer with us. Harrison Ford ain't coming back. They did Mark Hamill totally wrong. We all get the story. But the fact that you bought Lucasfilm Star Wars in 2012 and we still haven't seen Han, Luke, and Leia, nor barely had mention of their names in all of things with Disney Star Wars, it's a massive failure. It's more than likely that's going to continue. However, if they do it, if they have them in it, if they pull that off, people would be hanging from the rafters, brother, to go watch that.
Yep.
And that's what Disney doesn't get.
That's one of the best possibilities to turn that movie, whether good or bad, into a commercial success. Again, I'm not thinking of the diehards. I'm thinking of the normies out there. But they obviously can do it. Word has it they've got rights to digitally recreate these three folks. Disney had been working on that. We know they did that with Harrison Ford. Obviously, they've done that with Mark Hamill. It could be made to happen. And again, is it going to be a primary arc of the story? Probably not. But will they stick it in there for 5 seconds so they can feature it as the first shot in a movie trailer? Oh, you better believe.
Yeah.
Because nothing will sell a film more than that for Lucasfilm. Coach, appreciate you being here. Thanks for sharing your thoughts with us. Make sure you guys are subscribed to Echo Base Network. Coach had a video on this earlier today. We'll leave a link in the description below. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time, take care. Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.